everybody, this is Phil Town.
And this is Danielle Town.
Welcome to the InvestED podcast. You guys know what we do here. So,
Yes.
Of course, today we're going to do something else.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, why not? I was reading the Wall Street Journal today, and it was, the reading goes on, right?
The reading goes on, yes.
It goes on and on. So just reading everything. And
here's a question that we haven't talked about in a long time. What stuff do you currently read on the regular?
Oh,
Stuff meaning like not books, but like, a daily source, shall we say? I
spend a couple hours in the morning reading, and it's like I'm pretty well soaking up everything in the New York Times, everything in the Wall Street Journal, and anything that catches my eye that needs to be more depth to it. I'll start Googling that and diving in. And a lot of times in articles in both of the Journal and the Times, they'll have links to previous articles, which further. So I do that every morning.
That is a really cool part of the digital age that actually I had never quite put my finger on. But yeah, you're right. Yeah. Whereas you used to read something in the paper when it was paper and go like, oh, interesting. And maybe like cut it out and put it somewhere and eventually look into it. But now it's just immediate. It's so awesome.
It's a super powerful tool, this linking. And I read Barron's, which is a weekly.
Is good.
But they always are posting new stuff. Barron's is good. Although I'm reminded, Charlie said he's been reading Barron's for like 100 years or something and found one opportunity in it ever. And I think that's sort of the nature of it. I don't know that we find a lot of opportunities. I'll tell you what, the opportunities I found in reading usually come in the form of some headline that a company is getting slammed. And so, for example, that a headline took me to look at the BP well when it blew up and was spewing oil all over the Gulf. That took me to look at 3 different companies and then further afield into the whole industry of drilling in the Gulf, all the companies involved in that. We took a good look at and bought into 2 or 3 of them. And then, famously, of course, Chipotle had the E. coli thing, and that brought me back to Chipotle, looking for an opportunity to get in. So CF Industries, another really, really good investment we've had in the nitrogen fertilizer industry, came about from a headline that the industry is getting hammered. Prices were coming down, costs were going up, and we took a deep dive into that. So it's usually on that level that we find something, as opposed to Barron's recommends this, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I find that by the time the press finds out about it and starts putting it up there, it's typically pretty well known or has been through its bottom of the cycle of pricing. So in general, that's the only real deals that come up are coming up because of some big event occurring. But otherwise, it's just sort of keeping up with what's going on in the world, which ultimately affects me as an investor and as an owner of companies. And like I started to say, this morning I was reading about Tether, which is an unregulated currency, which is really interesting, right? It's a cryptocurrency, but cryptocurrencies aren't usually thought of realistically as currencies because you can't really, go out to the store and buy pizza very effectively with them. And
you can with Bitcoin.
Well, you can buy pizza.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how effectively you can buy pizza.
I don't know how effectively you could back up your purchase of the pizza should the pizza place question whether or not it's legit. I think that's what crypto comes down to. Is like, people who bought Bitcoin at the beginning have done just unbelievably well with it. And it's been a great gamble. But it's a gamble to me. It's got nothing behind it except the market.
Yeah.
And I think every crypto is like that, unless they've got a new sort of angle to it, which, I'm sure people are coming up with all the time, but nothing that's really like dug in and actually has pardon the expression, but it actually has a military behind it.
right, a military. Well, in a way, that's exactly what Tether's done, because
So what has Tether done?
Tether is a how would you describe it? It's a digital U.S. dollar, but it's private. It's not controlled by the U.S. government. They effectively match the Tether as a stable coin is pegged 1-to-1 against the dollar. And it didn't used to be very big, but it has spread and become rather gigantic. The journal is reporting that they had as much money flowing through Tether last year as Visa cards,
Jeez.
which is
So it's a
gigantic.
cryptocurrency, and
It
the
is.
only difference is that it doesn't have, so to speak, I suppose it does have its own market, but it basically doesn't have its own priced market because it's
Right.
pegged to the dollar at all times, just whatever the
All
dollar
times.
does. Okay.
Whatever the dollar does. And it's doing $190 billion a day.
That sounds like
day.
a lot.
That's a lot. That's Visa level stuff. So, what exploded it was a whole bunch of U.S. sanctions on countries that the United States didn't feel were operating properly in the world for whatever reason, including Russia, Venezuela, Iran. And the people discovered Tether was a place to put currency in Russian rubles and move it.
Not just
you could move
that's
it.
a way to put US dollar currency into
Yeah.
your country, which isn't allowed to have that. I mean,
Right.
that's obvious and genius.
Right.
Like, yeah.
I mean, right now, Venezuela, their state oil firm has been sanctioned and they can't trade in dollars. So it trades in Tether. Like
Now-
the Venezuelan government passed a law saying it can trade in Tether.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Yeah, is like the only way would be outlawing it in some way, but obviously it can operate outside the US in countries that don't care if the US doesn't like it because they've already gone off the map on that one. And if they're, as long as Tether's okay trading only in those areas, then cool. But like, is it just pegged to the dollar, or is there anything behind it? Like, do they just sort of say like, okay, it's similar to the dollar?
No, they don't. That wouldn't do it. What
No.
it has to be is a real connection to the dollar, and that real connection is that if you put $10 into Tether, they take the $10 and buy $10 of U.S. Treasuries.
Oh.
So they're fully backed up by U.S. Treasury bonds, which of course anybody can have, and they're not in anyone's name, and the U.S. government owes whoever has them that money. So I mean, so now what's happened is that
I'm of course fascinated by the legal part of this because they could prevent Tether from operating in the U.S.
I guess I'm wondering how they would do that, right? So, for example, they must be struggling because drug cartels are using Tether. Fraud rings that are taking people's IDs are using Tether to get paid. Terrorist groups like Hamas
Great
rather,
advertising for Tether.
uses
Jeez.
Tether. Well, I mean, shoot, so do tons of people in Venezuela and Argentina and Turkey, where hyperinflation destroys the value of their labor. So they're moving, like if you're in Argentina and you get paid this week, you move your money immediately to Tether, and now it's effectively in dollars.
Right.
Although
So
I'm wondering
how-
why they wouldn't do that anyway. Just go to the bank.
Probably because they can't.
Just Yeah, maybe not.
They don't have enough dollars there, or they
Right.
won't.
Venezuela, for example, in Venezuela, if you want to survive in Venezuela and you got hyperinflation, you've got to move your Venezuelan currency into something that won't lose value. For example, in Zimbabwe, when they had hyperinflation, people began to move their money to buy a future right to buy gasoline at a service station. And the service station would write them a note saying, you have the right to buy 10 gallons of gas. and the service station would take their money and effectively buy the gas at that point in time and then hold the gas. That's the theory. So gasoline became a currency. Well, actually, the chits for the gasoline became a currency until the gasoline station owners realized they could counterfeit those things, and they did, destroying the value of them. Yeah, people are people. So the question, of course, with Tether would be the same thing. Could they destroy the value? Or the fact is that it's tied to the U.S. dollar. You have to trust they would keep it that way and so on. And
Well,
it would be really...
Yeah, I mean, so the obvious bad scenario or good scenario, depending on how you look at it, if you're a normal person, bad scenario, is somehow the U.S. government prevents Tether from purchasing those treasuries that are backing up the currency. And then all of a sudden, everybody owns this imaginary cryptocurrency that means nothing. Because maybe now nobody will take it.
Yeah, but couldn't they get bonds from somebody else, or they could buy gold with it?
Yeah, maybe.
Presumably?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah, cool. Well, that's what was so interesting to me is that they used the U.S. dollar and not something like that's a more international form of currency like gold. What do you think about that?
Well, there's another Bitcoin, the gold coin, I think is what it's called, that is backed by gold.
Yeah,
They're putting gold in vaults. We've talked about that briefly, but I think in terms of just trading, it would be much harder to make an active trading out of a gold-backed, because you got it, buying and selling gold isn't nearly as easy as buying and selling bonds.
True.
Those are super liquid.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Tether is trying to freeze the wallets of anyone that's sanctioned. They make an effort. They do something like 1,000. Oh yeah, they do like 1,000 a day that they find are illegal or something.
Yeah, because that list of people they assist, like I said, was not a good vibe for Tether. Unless they're trying to be that. Which I guess, okay, you're saying they're not.
I mean, the company says that it can track every transaction on the public blockchain ledgers, and they can destroy any Tether held in any wallet.
Wow.
So I guess the problem with that is that these blacklisted functionaries are moving the money faster than Tether can blacklist them. I guess. I mean, they blacklisted 2,700 wallets with $153 billion, and all they managed to freeze was 1.4 billion of it. The rest of it had already moved.
What was the first number?
153 billion.
And they froze 1.4?
They actually managed to hold on to actually freeze 1.4 billion. So they got a 0.25% of it, and the rest of it just moved. And apparently it's really hard. I'm not deep enough into this to know why that's hard to keep up with, but apparently it is.
I mean, I'm sure they're doing it on a second-to-second basis as quickly as possible, just moving the money.
Wild.
Interesting.
Wow.
So as an
I guess you just
investor
move it.
who doesn't, well, are you going to invest in Tether? Do you want to go buy some Tether? Are you going to do the story of Tether?
Well, look, let's be legit here about this. If you're sitting here thinking, and I'm sure there are definitely people in the United States who are very wealthy, who are looking what's happening with regulatory environment in America, and the kinds of efforts being made by, let's say, Kamala Harris to propose a tax on everyone who's worth more than $100 billion.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a proposal. I don't know how deep it came from the Harris camp, but it was definitely floated that they wanted to tax 25%. Just take 25% of everybody that's worth over $100 billion. And on the All In podcast, one of the guys there said that's about 5,000 of us. So they were including themselves who have that kind of money.
Sure.
And they said that the problem is it today isn't like World War II when you could tax Americans 90% and they would stick around. Today, those people will leave. They'll go somewhere else. And they pointed to France as an example of that raised taxes very high, and very wealthy people just moved.
Or Britain in the 70s.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Right on. I mean, Taxman with the Beatles, right?
But yeah, I mean, to the larger point of should somebody want to have a better tax treatment, is maybe a sort of quasi-governmental crypto a real option?
Well,
yeah, I don't know.
I was thinking more not in terms of better tax treatment as preventing your wealth from being confiscated. That is a confiscation of wealth that is being proposed by the Democrats.
Confiscation, tax, whatever. It's money that goes to the government that you don't want to pay to the government. Okay, you're trying to dodge your taxes. Let's call it what it is. The taxes are 99%. Yes, I would like to dodge that. What do I do? Monaco won't let me in.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so you move your money out. I mean, I think you have to move out as well, right? I guess moving your money from Tether doesn't make it disappear. So if you wanted to, let's say you're one of those people worth over $100 million. 100 million, right? Or is it 100? Must be 100 million. So they're going to take 25%. All right. So if they come after you and you're still in the country, they're going to get you.
Maybe. I mean, I think the point here, as far as tax dodging, is how do you hide as much of your money as you can? Okay, they're going to get you, but you being the four corners of your tax return. So, I don't know. I don't know why we're talking about tax dodging.
I don't know that it's all a tax dodge. I'm thinking it's, first off, the people who are honest and legitimately using Tether would be people in economic environments where the government is dishonest.
Exactly. That's what I find so interesting about it. And worried, like the people in Venezuela, if that's who's buying this up legitimately with, non-laundered money, and then that disappearing, that's concerning.
Well, then you'd have to think, well, okay, aren't all governments proving themselves to be, to one degree or another, dishonest players? They will change the rules on you if they feel like they need to, or regulators can change the rules on you mid-game, and they would simply go after you. I mean, they're doing that right now on Apple Computer. I mean, Ireland set up certain rules for Apple to come in and avoid taxation, which Apple followed, and now the EU, is that it? The EU, they just won a court case for Apple to cough up $13.8 billion out of Ireland.
Really?
Ireland's got to pay it. Yeah, and Apple is going, well, you changed the rules on us, and we've always paid our taxes.
We tried.
And effectively, if we didn't pay the taxes there, we paid them somewhere else. We just don't want to pay them twice.
This is a great point, and one that very much relates to public company investing. It was a big conversation at the time that Ireland essentially created a haven for multinational companies to come and headquarter and try to avoid some of the U.S. tax. And a lot of investors at the time had the opinion that that was a fantastic choice, and every multinational company that had the option has the obligation to do so in the interest of maximizing shareholder profits, which is the task of any for-profit company.
Right.
Lots of other people thought that it was morally wrong and a giant waste of company resources to move so many people and build buildings and restructure all the legal stuff just to go to a country where they could change the rules. And I'm not sure there's a great answer between those two things, but every company that has the option that's large enough and multinational enough has to make that choice. And I think it's something that as investors, as owners, it's important to know kind of like which side of that you come down on, because when times like this happen where taxes get changed, companies have to choose, especially U.S.-based companies. So the big argument of the people who thought that companies should not leave the U.S. was that, especially for Apple's a great example, they were created out of the circumstances that the U.S. provided for incredible entrepreneurship opportunities to be able to start a computer company like that.
Right.
And therefore they should have loyalty to the country that allowed them to start, which was not Ireland. And there, are not 15 incredibly successful computer companies coming out of Ireland, but there are out of the U.S. And so people think that they should stay. Yeah, so I think it's an interesting conundrum, and curious if you've kind of got a side on that.
I'll tell you, man, I am less and less in favor of these great big multinational companies.
Well, there's a third option, isn't there? Break them up.
I see some of the advantage. I'm thinking there's a real advantage to start breaking up some of these companies in the tech world. And of course, the difficulty is if everybody doesn't play by those rules, then you're going to have some big companies from somewhere else dominate.
Yeah.
Particularly from China, probably. But if you think about a company like Amazon, just in broad strokes, Amazon subsidizes the retail side of its business that we all use, which runs at a loss, with its AWS, the platform for the cloud, and it makes a ton of money there, feeds that money over to the Amazon retail side, and that allows the Amazon retail side the ability to effectively bankrupt big box stores that can't keep up with its pricing. And that doesn't seem to me to be fair. That seems to me to be like,
but
wait
that's what Amazon's done since the beginning. It's a standard strategy these days.
If you're gonna be a government regulator, why are you worried about two purse companies merging together to have a monopoly on the $200 purse or whatever, right?
Oh, that's just a random example. Okay.
No, it's not. That's two purse companies.
What are the two purse companies that regulators are worried about?
Yeah, Capri, which owns a couple of different purse lines, mostly Michael Kors, and another company, I forgot their name right offhand, but they own a bunch of other purse companies. And they compete in a range of prices for the sort of branded cool purse at a low price kind of deal.
Is it Coach?
Yeah, Coach is involved there.
Okay.
Yep. And so, one company is trying to buy the other company and revitalize particularly its Michael Kors brands. And the federal government stepped in and blocked the merger, arguing that this is going to create a monopoly. And these guys are like, excuse me, there's 100 other purse companies competing with us, literally. So here you have the federal government making a bit of a fool out of themselves while leaving.
That doesn't sound that crazy to me.
It doesn't?
No.
You don't think that there's a massive amount of competition in the purse world?
Not in that range internationally, no.
What? Okay, well, you had to read the
as a
legal
consumer.
As a purse consumer,
there is not a lot of competition in that realm. But that's neither here nor there. It doesn't matter.
Well, it's quite here nor there. I think it's quite here, not nor there. It's here because the argument from the federal government side in their legal brief is that, in fact, an executive at the company doing the merger said, if we get this done, we will be able to raise our prices. Which is a glaring red flag or smoking gun or whatever you want to call it. And they're using that to go in there and say, see, you guys are a monopoly and you are going to raise your prices. And of course, the companies came back and said, this is ridiculous. We will show you 100 different companies that we compete with in a whole range of purses. So we'll see how it comes out. We're starting to decide whether we should bet on the merger going through, because the merger goes through at $57 and the current price of Capri is $32. So it could be a smash home run.
That's actually super interesting. Yeah. I didn't know that was going on, because I don't read anything and it sucks.
I know.
So that's why I'm so uninformed.
But you're getting better. You're getting better.
Yeah.
All the
this
time.
is the last thing, reading. Actual knowledge and work. Yeah. That's
makes it a little tough. But you can listen to me. I'll be happy to tell you everything.
Yeah, you'll tell me all the facts, right?
Yeah, everything. Just listen to me. I got this.
But so, like, I think with those kinds of smaller mergers, I mean, the argument that, like, oh, government shouldn't pay any attention to them because they're smaller is a little bit silly. Like, we need to make sure that we are on top of the law, period, right? But if what you're saying is they should be more onerous and more jellyfishy on the gigantic, Big Ten. I think I'm pretty much in favor of these guys breaking up these big tech companies, and it wouldn't hurt Google investors at all. And I'm a Google investor, so, but I would like to see their power substantially reduced. The power in the hands of a handful of executives. I feel the same way about BlackRock owning a piece of every frickin' company in the public stock exchanges. Yeah.
To disperse their trillions of dollars. I think it's an idiocy that would allow these guys to be able to vote those shares because they're running indexes. It's just heinous. What I see is the regulators are about 10 years behind the times. They're going after Google now that Google is in trouble from competition from AI. I mean, it's like going after Microsoft for being a monopoly, just as Google is coming in to kick its butt.
Right.
Which is what they've done. They're always so far behind.
They're way behind, for sure. I do think that when that question has been coming up for, yes, as you're saying, for a very long time, whether or not these companies are essentially quasi-governmental and have far too much information and therefore far too much power, it's going to come to a head for sure. And the reason the companies argue to stay together, to stay as one, is that the consumer supposedly benefits from the company having its hand and therefore its connections between all of its various divisions. So our email from Gmail is free and wonderful because they take our info and they then sell us stuff through the ads, and then they can also provide us, photo sharing or whatever. Google has so many things I can't even think.
They have so many things. They do.
So that's the argument to keep them together, that they could only have provided these and invented, that's the truth, these services because it was one entity. And that's not wrong. I mean, this is the basis of antitrust law. Like, that's not wrong. There's benefits to monopolies, or to giant organizations. But at some point, the drawbacks outweigh the benefits.
Well, of course, the history of monopolies is to increase prices on consumers. So the watchdogs use that as the primary red flag.
That's true.
Pretty hard to say that Google is increasing prices to consumers when it's free. So that's the catch, right? That's the catch. It's really hard to say Amazon is increasing prices to consumers when it's doing the opposite.
Yeah, so totally. And I think that's why regulators are behind, because the issue now is not the pricing. The issue now is the power.
It's the power, the destruction of other business, the failure,
the lack of options.
The lack of options, the failure. The power is so large that the startups don't have a chance.
Exactly. It's a chilling effect on the market.
Absolutely. And if they do have a chance, they get bought out.
Yeah,
right?
precisely.
I mean, that's exactly what happens. The big guy just acquires them.
Precisely.
And
And that's
so-
why they focus so much on mergers, because that is where they can make a difference in the moment that it's happening. They're not behind when a merger's happening. And that's
Well, it's
why
also-
they put so much energy into those.
And but it's just sort of, I can't help it. It's just sort of flippin' ridiculous to spend our money, right, pursuing a purse monopoly. I mean, who cares? Who cares that Capri raises the prices of Michael Kors purses? Go buy some other purse. They got purses at every price point you can find. So more power to them. Let them do it. It's stupid on the part of government to come after that.
There
when
are
they've got-
not other purses.
There are so many different.
Like the
all right.
great complaint of the purse buying community is that there are not other purses in that price point. I'm sorry, but that is reality. And I know nothing about this case that's going on or the merger, but that is reality as a consumer.
Do you think?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Who
You
makes
got your
the Sequoia?
Ferragamos, you got your Coaches, you got your Michael Kors. What else have you got in that range?
Wait. Kate Spade.
Kate Spade is bought up by one of those companies.
It is owned by one of those companies,
Yeah.
right? But I'm looking at Amazon right now in $100 price point.
No, not
You've got-
$100. Those purses are not $100.
Oh yeah, they have all that range. Kate Spade is $129. Looking at it right here.
Oh, one of the nylon
129
ones.
bucks. I don't know, but it's $129. Well, they've also got a competitive shoulder bag that's quite cute for $16.98. They've got a crossbody bag for $89.
Dad,
They
the
have
one
the
that's
Sequoia-
$16 is
They
a
have the
fake.
Sequoia hobo bag for
I
$109. They've
Some
got
of these are not real. It's Amazon.
What do you mean they're not real? You can buy it. It's a purse.
It's a fake. It's not made by the company. It's
No,
made by
it's
somebody
made
else,
by-
and they put a fake label on it.
No, it's not saying it's Kate Spade. It's saying it's Montana West.
Oh, yeah.
Montana West tote bags for women. One that looks just like the Kate Spade bag for $29.99. How is the government going to make an argument that you can't get a purse I mean, it's crazy. Of course you can. It's just not going to have Kate Spade on it.
It's almost like the argument that you could buy a white T-shirt from Hermes, or you could buy a white T-shirt from Walmart. And how could the government or anybody else ever think that anyone would ever spend $400 on a T-shirt when they could get one at Walmart for 3 for $10?
Well, your argument is that there weren't any other purses available in this price point, and that is just obviously not true. So what you must have meant is there's no other purses you like the brand of.
Equivalent, yes.
Oh, that's a stretch. That's a stretch for the government that's just a little bit crazy. As opposed to, let's say, an oil company buys up all the other oil companies and raises the price of gas by $1.
Yeah, I would say that's a heck of a lot more serious than the purse
Yeah.
situation.
So, come on,
Absolutely.
Lena. Stick with something important and don't get
Who's
caught up
Lena?
in something stupid. So,
Who's
okay.
Lena?
Lena Khan is the person on the Biden administration who's pursuing all of these mergers to try to stop them.
Oh.
She was the one that tried to stop Microsoft from buying Activision Blizzard and failed. We were very happy with her failure. But then again, had she succeeded, we'd have been happy with that too, because we've been owning Activision at a really good price.
I mean,
So-
the fun thing about these cases amongst mergers, one of my good friends is an antitrust attorney, and just from the little bit that I hear from him, the fun thing is it's hard to tell who's got the right until you go through the 1, 2, 3 legal arguments. But
Who's got the
once you
right?
go through whether they have the right to merge or whether the government has the right to stop them.
Okay.
But once you go through the 1, 2, 3 legal arguments, it becomes, according to him, at least to attorneys, very clear which one is in the right. And yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for investing. It's something that I think a lot about.
Well, so all of this
anyway, we should really circle back.
We
should circle back around to like breaking up multinational companies and companies having to move because
that definitely is investing, grist for the mill. But also, let me just wrap up a little bit on Tether.
Okay.
And that is that what is driving the creation of these extra government currencies is the fear that governments are becoming more and more totalitarian as we go. And it fascinates me that the left is busy screaming, fascist at Trump when they are cranking the regulations more and more and more and more, not just in America, but all over the world. And, it is, as someone once said, if fascism gets to America, it's going to come in the form of liberalism. It'll come in the form of
let's just move away from.
No, let me just finish. Let me finish.
You think?
Let me
go
finish.
Ahead. You can finish.
And that is that what's driving this is this over-regulatory environment, and that is coming from the left in America. This over-regulatory environment where more and more concern exists out there that the government is willing to take your stuff. And when they go too far, then we will all wish we had something like Tether around. But right now, they haven't gone too far. So they're just creating the environment for the future. And I don't know how they will ever really put a stop to this other than arresting the people who are creating these things. And that's a big step toward totalitarianism, isn't it? So we'll see what happens. I'm fascinated by Tether. They are a valuable resource for people who need to protect their currency. And as Charlie Munger says, they're rat poison because of their ability to be used by illegal and nasty stuff that we don't want to be successful. So it's
because there's nothing backing them up. I think that's the other reason.
Dollars are backing them up.
Maybe, sort of. Right? Like that's what we just went through. Like what if the dollars aren't there?
Well, I suppose they could somehow do what FX did. And then the dollars aren't there and then they're screwed. So yeah, you got that problem as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that happy note,
should multinational companies that we own leave their country of origin in search of better tax treatment? Question.
Okay.
How's that for an essay question? Okay.
Yeah, good. Next time.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
So long. Hi guys, thanks for listening to InvestED. If you enjoyed this episode and you want more information or to listen to additional episodes, visit our website at investedpodcast.com and sign up for my virtual workshop right there. Spots are definitely limited for this event. I'm not kidding, they really are. They sell out very quickly. So everything discussed on this podcast, by the way, is either my opinion or it's Danielle's opinion. And really important, it's not to be taken as investing advice because I am not your financial advisor, nor have I considered your personal situation as your fiduciary. So remember that. You're on your own here. This podcast is for your entertainment and education only, and I really hope you enjoyed it.